All right, I am back. It is still Friday. Thank God it's Friday. And I'm going to do the last video of the day. I will probably publish this sometime tonight or maybe tomorrow morning. But I hope I can explain this or at least try to discuss it intelligently. It has to do with Canon printers, specifically the Pro 10 and possibly the Pro 1. As you may or may not know, Canon printers, especially the photo printing variety, will use photo black as well as matte black, but not necessarily the way you think. With these two printers, if you choose say a glossy paper on your main paper choice portion of the driver, it will key in the use of photo black or the glossy black. Well, if you were to choose matte paper under the same category, the main category of paper choices, you would think it would begin to use matte black, but it does not. It uses photo black still. Only when you pick a fine art matte choice will it trigger in the use of matte black. And then it will impart that 35 or 30 millimeter border on the front leading edge and on the rear trailing edge. And I think that is done to prevent any kind of abrasion or any kind of problems when printing with fine art papers, because they are thicker and more apt to not be as flexible. So what is actually taking place? Why did Canon program the driver to use photo black with any of those primary or common paper choices, which, by the way, does include matte paper? Well, it became known by someone who then passed on the information to me quite by accident. He noticed that a photograph began to look like it was solarized, and by that I mean that the blackest blacks lost their blackness. They became kind of grayish. It was almost like a halfway reversal from positive to negative. And so that was quite strange. He messed around for a while, and then he finally decided to run a nozzle check and realized that his black channel was practically completely blocked and not laying down any ink. So that kind of told him that when using a common paper type, photo black ink does not really come into play until the very, very darkest tones are being printed. Anything above those very dark points on the tonal range of the image are actually composited by the other colors and not necessarily photo black. So you have your grays come into play and your other colors as well. Theoretically, if you mix equal amounts of yellow, cyan, and magenta ink, you should get a deep black. Yes, you can. But the deepest blacks come when that photo black is kicked into the mix. So you can say that when using photo type papers, the glossy type, photo black hardly is used except for accenting your darker tones in that particular image. But when you switch over to matte, that all of a sudden goes away. Photo black will become more widely used, not just on those last two or darkest of the two steps, say from black to white. It will begin to be used a lot more, even though it's just a medium dark tone. Photo black will come into play a lot more than it would be on glossy paper. So apparently photo black is being used a lot more than we give it credit when you choose matte black. When you switch over to fine art type material, then the opposite happens. It kicks in the matte black, which is of course a denser carbon-based type ink, and that produces on the same type of matte surface paper a deeper, more contrasty look, especially when printing black and whites. And I have videos where I have kind of demonstrated that effect. But that is really strange to me. I never realized that that's what was actually taking place on the common paper type situation, where photo black is the only black ink that is actually triggered. So interesting to know. And of course, there are some tests that you can run, but again, I often wonder why Canon even bothered to do that instead of just simply allowing matte ink to be used when you pick matte paper. It's basically, essentially, the Canon Pro Matte paper. It will still use only photo black. Now, in order for you to get the best, deepest blacks when printing under that situation, is to make a custom profile yourself. And that was wonderful. It was like day and night. And again, I also have a video that displays that effect. I was using the matte paper choice under the regular photo paper section, not the fine art. And I printed a photograph using the paper profile for that particular Canon Pro Matte. And although it was good, I noticed immediately the darks were not as deep as I would have wanted them. I then created a profile again using the same exact settings, and by golly, it increased my blacks tremendously. And so simply by doing that, it was able to at least enhance the appearance of the deepest blacks compared to the regular profile use print. So that might be another thing that you could try. But again, I was just exploring that. The person who told it to me in such technical detail that it almost went over my head completely, and I had to ask him to please repeat it in more layman's language so that even I could understand it. So I am passing that to you. That is the reason why Canon uses photo black on the regular paper choices, regardless of surface type. Now, the Pro 1000, okay, the big brother of the Canon Pro line, uses matte with matte media and photo black with everything else that has a shine. There is no such thing as using photo black for matte media. It will use matte ink when you choose matte paper. It will use matte ink when you choose fine art matte paper as well. Now, one phenomenon is that it will also use a bit of glossy or photo black ink, and vice versa. When you are printing with a shiny media, you're using primarily photo black, it will also use a little bit of the matte black. So that is interesting. I don't know what that does to the tonality range, but it should be interesting to experiment once I get my Pro 1000 sitting right here on my table. All right, that is it. Hope I didn't bore you with this little technical bit of information about the uses of photo black and matte black in the Canon Pro 10, and I suspect also identical on the Pro 1. All right, that is it. Thank you so much again. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.